Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here on this Sunday evening. My name is Quayd, also known as Honest Ape, and I'm here with
Sushi, thanks. Check me out on YouTube if you're not already watching me.
Sushi. And this is a live call-in show for Street Epistemology, which is essentially a cordial way of having conversations on controversial topics. We're taking calls through the politics Discord server and streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. And then Pierce Watkins will be joining us through StreamYard at a later time. And so the idea here is we're going to take some callers here in a minute, but we kind of just want to talk about SE a little bit beforehand, street epistemology, that is, experiences with it, especially in the politics Discord server. I think Sushi,
Yeah, so
you were
what
saying
is
earlier.
what is street epistemology for those who don't know?
Yeah, it is essentially just a cordial way or a polite way of having a conversation over a topic that is controversial. But the idea is to still ask critical questions that may cause reflection, get to what we call the epistemology. How do you know what you know? And is that a reliable way? But to also make that a more pleasant experience than maybe the way a lot of debates go.
Yeah, and that's what separates street epistemology from other conversation methods is it is cordial, right? But we still challenge the beliefs, right? Do you think your own reason is a good reason to come to that conclusion? Because we all hold on to a lot of beliefs, but we don't always ask ourselves that question. So using street epistemology, we work together to talk with you to see if you think your reasons meet your own criteria, right? All right.
Sounds all right.
Do you want to take our first caller?
We can do that for sure.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of people piling in here. Go ahead and send them up.
Acid.
Yo, hello.
How's it going? We can hear you.
What's going on?
What's up?
I don't know. I never been on here. I guess I was gonna say, dude, are you a bad racist person if you don't say it outwardly? If you just think shit in your head,
are we a bad racist person? Is that the question?
No, does it make you like an actual racist if you just think it in your head? If some guy's walking down the street and says some shit to me and I think some racist shit, does that make
Could you summarize what your belief or claim is in a single sentence? So I believe it's bad to be racist even if you only have the thoughts in your head. Is that what your claim is?
Yeah, I'd say that's the gist of it.
Okay. So go ahead, Quayd, you take it.
I'm just making sure that I understand. So the idea is, yeah, because we're more interested in what you think. So are you saying that it makes you a bad racist person?
I'm saying it's not.
Right. Okay. That's gotcha. That's what I actually thought the claim was. So I'm glad we clarified that. Okay. So you're not a bad racist person just because you have racist thoughts in your head. Is that it, Acid?
Right.
Gotcha. All right. I don't know that it would be beneficial to define racism here. I think we all got this down.
Yeah.
How confident would you say that you are that this is what you're saying is true?
I'd say it's pretty true.
Okay.
I'd say 100%.
100%. Gotcha. Okay, 100%. What's one of your main reasons for thinking this? Why do you think this?
I don't know. I think the truth is based in actions, not thoughts. So if you're just thinking it, I don't see a problem with it.
Okay. So they're just thoughts. That's the idea, right?
Right.
Okay. Is there anything that would increase your confidence that what you're saying here is true? Any information or facts that you could find that would further confirm your position here?
I don't think so. I think I'm pretty stiff.
Gotcha. What about decrease then? Is there anything that could decrease your confidence?
Yeah, I'd say so. If like if there was a way to prove that like your subconscious thoughts or conscious thoughts were more of who you are than your actions, then I think I'd be willing to decrease that.
If your conscious thoughts were more of who you were than your actions. Okay, that's what you said, right?
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes sense. Um, so I think that answers the next question I had then. Could someone use the same reasoning that you have for this, but come to like a false conclusion? Like, so for instance, I'm trying to think of an example that isn't so extreme, but all the ones in my head are pretty extreme. Like, does it make you and you got anything, Sushi? Because the ones that I'm thinking here aren't might not be the best examples for the Gollin show.
No, I don't have. I didn't actually hear that last part. Sorry, handling
Okay.
chats.
Okay. All right. I'll try it. If someone has, let's say, inappropriate thoughts about a group of people, does that?
Okay, I see where.
Okay, thank you. All right, because I don't want to have to spell this out.
Yeah.
Does that make them not a
Okay.
thing? Because
I mean, like legally, if they never took action on it, like
okay,
there wouldn't be a problem. But morally, I would say there's still a problem there if they're attracted to a certain group of people.
gotcha. So would it apply then to the concept that we're talking about?
Yeah, I guess so, huh?
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I mean, I don't know where you draw the line on something like that.
It is difficult, right?
How do you go about measuring the amount of harm that thought has versus like an action, like in relation to this claim?
I don't think a thought can have harm unless there's an action behind it.
So you think that a thought can have harm as long as there's no action. Okay.
Right.
Do you think that our beliefs inform our actions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you think it's possible, or that's a really bad question, I'm sorry. So if our beliefs can inform our action, how could we determine if somebody's thoughts were or weren't, causing harm in the world?
How can we tell if someone's beliefs are causing harm?
Yeah, so
No.
their thoughts, right? So they have a belief, right? That
Right.
they're racist, right? And they only have these thoughts, right? But how do we determine whether or not those thoughts, actually do have an outcome in reality? Like how are you making that that determination that they're not causing harm?
I think it could only possibly cause harm if the idea is verbalized or if like a physical action is taking place.
Mm. And what are your reasons for the conclusion that people that only have racist thoughts, um, or that only have these thoughts that don't have action? Sorry, that was confusing. Did that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think thoughts are just thoughts. Like I'm sure most of you guys have had like a terrible thought, you know what I mean? Like someone hands you their newborn and you're like, I could football spike this bitch into the ground right now, right? But you don't do it because it's wrong, right?
Okay. Yeah. If I could just briefly go back to one of the things you were saying, because we were talking about, you said essentially it's not, in terms of legality, it's not a thing, but morally there seems to be an issue in one of the examples we were talking about earlier. Do you still think that maybe?
I do think. I don't know. I think I might have got hung up on that specific example because it was more extreme.
Gotcha.
But
So you don't think it applies to the thing that we're talking about necessarily?
I'm not really sure. I'm not sure.
Got you. Okay, well, let's hold that in the back pocket then for later. If you found out that it was true, if you found out that it did
Bad
that
person.
that you were a bad person or that it made someone bad, how would this change your day-to-day interactions or your behaviors?
I don't know. I don't think it would. I don't think it would change my day to day at all. I'd keep doing the same thing I'm doing. Like you don't have to act on it outwardly, even if it's true. You still don't like.
Okay. Would you feel like guilt maybe or any of these things?
Yeah, I think so. I think that'd be a natural response to it, to finding out that it's 100% true that way.
Got you. But you still don't see it changing any of your even though you're feeling this guilt, you're still pretty much going to do the same things.
Right. I don't think a person that only had like if there was a person that had racist thoughts, right, and they found out that that made them like a genuine bad racist, I don't think that would make them start going out like doing hate crimes and saying the N-word and shit.
Got you. So whether this is, it seems like whether this is true or not isn't really the crux of the issue. It seems like you could then have racist thoughts, but this is completely separate and even be a bad person, but this doesn't, none of this has to dictate your behavior.
Right. Right.
Got you. Okay. All right. Let's see. Other questions you have, Sushi?
No, I think that kind of sums it up. Yeah, well, do you have any questions for us?
No questions.
I do have
All
one
right.
one final question, if it's okay, which is, did any of that conversation change your position? You were originally at 100%. Is it still 100%?
I'd say 90, 95 maybe.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you, Acid. How honest of you. We appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Acid.
Take care. All right. Well, that was interesting. Thank you for coming up and joining us on stage. So for those that have just joined us, this is the Street Epistemology call-in show, which is Street Epistemology is just a fancy word for how do you know what you know? It's a non-confrontational approach to conversation in place of debate, right? And we ask you what you believe, why you believe it, and how do you know it's true? And then your reasonings, we ask you if you think your reasonings are good enough to reach that conclusion.
And if we can just briefly talk about a few other things here, because we didn't talk about them originally, you can go to the
Yeah.
SE Discord and interact with the Street Epistemology community there. You can also go to the Navigating Beliefs course, which is at navigatingbeliefs.com, and that can teach you this process yourself if you're interested in that. And then we have the Street Epistemology YouTube channel, Sushi Thinks. So Sushi over here has a YouTube channel. I have one at Honest Abe 42. We're on Facebook, Reddit, X, and we'd like to thank subscribers. And we are ready to take, I think, our next caller. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, we're actually having a caller join us that called in last week. So yeah, go ahead and send them up. Hey, welcome back.
Hello.
Hey, son.
Thanks for joining us again.
Yes.
What brings you back this week? What kind of belief do you have?
Well, I've been watching a lot of really chewing on a lot of things from the History Channel and what's going on presently politically, and making the statement and claim that Christian nationalism is anti-American, is my claim.
Christian nationalism is anti-American. Okay. That's a lot there. So, could you just give me like a short explanation of what Christian nationalism is and what it means for someone to be anti-American?
Okay, yeah. So Christian nationalism, I would say defined, especially from the programs that I've seen, um, desires God and Christianity to be the defining force in politics as far as what informs laws, what and policies that it should be. All the policies and law should orbit the Judeo-Christian ethic.
Okay, so someone who's a Christian nationalist is somebody who's like deeply religious and believes that like America is kind of like founded on these like principles, or did I mishear that?
No, that's about right. Yeah, that it's
Okay.
historically that's the case. Yes.
But I
Okay,
think
so
even
what
today, right?
oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
no, go for it.
I think the idea is, though, even today they think that government and government policies should be informed by their particular beliefs in God and Christianity. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So
So
what
public.
makes you
Go ahead. Go ahead.
what makes you believe that this is true? That it's bad for America?
Because America started out. Even I remember a program where in some writings where even Benjamin Franklin was cautious when Thomas Jefferson wanted the Declaration of Independence, to sound had more of a sacred tone. That this was a sacred right of man to be free to pursue the happiness. And Benjamin Franklin was like, it's too much religion in that. Self-evident should be the word that we should use. So there's a view that if you want to respect people's religion and people's ideas, that they need to have a free space to do that. So that
So I'm
kind
not
of pluralistic.
sorry. I'm not
Okay.
quite sure I'm following the reason there. So
Mhm.
if you could like summarize it in like a single like sentence or two, like why you believe Christian nationalism is anti-American.
Because it creates a singular point of view that excludes other points of view. And for
Gotcha.
me, that is inherently anti-American.
Okay. So if you were to find out that it doesn't exclude other views, would that change your mind at all?
It would.
Okay, cool.
So
So
I don't know. That's difficult. Go ahead. Yeah,
no,
go
no,
ahead.
I don't know. Yeah, that's great. I don't know is a great answer. So
Mhm.
how did you go about finding out whether or not Christian nationalism is in fact doing that?
Well, I watched a few programs that explore Christian nationalism and seeing the people, the preachers in the pulpit and their point of view. They definitely have a particular direction about where the country should go, and it definitely is against various other points of view. So
Okay, so you watched a program, and
a
on
few
this
programs.
a few programs, okay, and these few programs showed or explained that how it could be limiting the views of the world, right? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we had somebody else who watched a bunch of programs, and in those programs, it showed that you know it it's good for America, that it actually creates more cooperation, or it increases um, the amount of diversity or acceptance. Um, would would that be a good reason for them to believe that's true?
Yeah, yeah, it would.
Hmm. Okay. So if like we had this third person, and then we had to determine whether or not you are correct or they're correct, right? So they both watched some like of a handful of programs that says, hey, this is good, and then yours says this is bad. How would this third party be able to determine which one is correct?
I guess through we call dialogue, dialectic dialogue. He'll hear both points of view, and then maybe that person will determine which one really holds to the spirit of the of what America should be or could be about.
Okay. Honest Tape, do you have some questions for him?
I don't. I guess. Could someone have this kind of same reasoning? Like if somebody, let's say, was watching secular people speak, and they viewed secular people as really wanting the whole nation to be secular, should this be considered some type of secular nationalism? Does that make sense?
No, I don't. I don't catch this. Could you rephrase that a little bit?
Yeah, if people who, let's say, don't have a religion, right, are expressing that they want the laws to be based off of non-secular, or I'm sorry, they want the laws to be based off of secular things. They don't want the laws or the nation to at all be guided by God or Christianity or any religion. Is this basically non-religious nationalism is the question.
Non-religious nationalism. Yeah, yeah, I suppose that's true. That would be um a view. Um, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was it for me.
Okay, cool. Do you have any questions for us?
Um, mm, well, I suppose w- what would be is it okay to ask what your guys' viewpoint would be
Yeah, sure.
between the two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go ahead. You want to answer that first?
I am actually in agreement with you. Yeah,
Hmm.
I do find myself. I do think that I don't think Christianity is an issue. I believe in everybody's right to believe what they want. But I do think Christian nationalism is an issue, and I'm even, I think, compelled by your some of your arguments here that it's anti-American. If America really does, if one of the concepts is freedom, then it seems like some of those positions would be against freedom.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess my position would be, like I don't really know. I don't know how I'd go about being able to like measure the amount of harm that it's doing versus um, if the amount of good it's doing, and by like what metric we're using to base that harm on. It sounds to me like it is a bad thing, but I don't have like sufficient evidence to come to any conclusions.
Okay. Just curious because
Yeah,
it's been a concern of mine. One of
that's
those
it.
concerns of mine. So, but yeah, but that's all. Thank you. That's curious.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the drilling down the reason, which is why I like street epistemology. It's great reflective way to
Yeah,
drill down reasons.
Well,
Thanks, Ascend.
thank you so much. Yeah, it was really nice having you up here. Take care.
Yeah. All right.
Well, they were pleasant. Yeah. So for those of you who are in the room, this is the Street Epistemology call-in show, where we talk to people about their beliefs and ask them questions to see if their reasons are good enough for them to reach those conclusions. Because if they are, maybe, we should adopt that belief too. And if you guys are watching, you want to call in, you can come to the Politics Discord server. The link is in the comments. You can also go to streetepistemology.com, and it gives you more information about what you're doing. And if you want to learn how to do what we do, go to navigatingbeliefs.com. There is also a Street Epistemology Discord server, and we will be there after the show as well. And there's a ton of great people there that are kind of doing this all the time. Yeah. So yeah, we have another caller. Go ahead.
Hey, hello. Nice to meet you.
Hey, introvert.
So my claim today is that I believe podcasting equipment and also podcasts or talk shows, all of the sorts that ascertain large audiences online, should be regulated, including streaming. Do you want me to add like the reasoning why as well on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the reasoning why would be because to hold epistemic norms within society.
Oh, okay. So do you have particular podcasts, you don't have to share them, by the way, in mind that you see as violating some of these epistemological norms?
Yeah, of course. There's talk shows like Alex Jones, like InfoWars, Fox News is up there, CNN. I would say, as well as things like even like smaller shows like these ones that reach small audiences that can be easily probed. I'm not saying necessarily this one, but I think there's been sometimes probably there's been information that's passed through here that has been maybe negative. For example, that first gentleman that came up here that was talking about racism.
Okay.
I don't think I should have gave that platform. That's kind of...
All right. I understand that. Oh shoot, I lost my question.
I think like hey, I'm talking now, by the way. Hey,
hey Pierce, what's up?
But anyway, so kind of to follow that train of thought, the reason is kind of what I'm interpreting. You say is that they should be regulated because people are getting platformed that are saying things that that you don't think are things that should be said, like to a large audience. Is that what am I hearing that correctly?
To a degree. When I talk about epistemic norms, I'm talking about the way that people are ascertaining knowledge within society. I don't think if without regulation, like talk shows like this maybe, are maybe not building that criteria, because first of all, it's not like really found within most societies that we allow for the freedom of press, not even in America. And I think that's a good thing. So I don't think we should be platforming ideas for the sake of platforming ideas.
Okay. And so could you give me any more specifics about what you mean by regulated? Or
yeah, I don't believe I believe for example, like a license, or they should be supervised by the government and have the ability to be shut down whenever.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, license.
Does this go
government
for like every country in the whole world, or are we specifically talking about
this is universal?
Universal? Okay.
I think this is universal.
So you would want this implemented in, like, let's say another country like Russia or China?
I think they already have it to a degree there, but just a stronger factor.
Gotcha.
I mean, what Navalny was just killed of sudden death syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I support Navalny. I don't support Putin. But
Okay. So how would we know whether or not this is something that we should? How would we know whether or not doing this actually upholds um, epistemological norms?
if it's regulated through like being socially acceptable. I mean, like Alex Jones, he came in with some pretty gnarly stuff, and it let it like fester in people's mind and sit and grow. I mean, talk shows, yeah. Like, I mean, don't you guys think you guys have been maybe responsible for like the baby radicalization of a few people?
I would be open to evidence that that is the case for sure, but I do not know currently that that has happened.
Well, don't you guys have a large audience?
I mean, we have one right now. But I mean, so the idea is that we have a large audience, and so therefore we are, how would you put this, introvert? Help me out here.
I would put this as you guys have a large reach and also a strong enough focus and concentration of knowledge into certain people, and like, for example, specific dialogues with people where perhaps you're fostering them to just keep believing in the things that they believe and not really attacking. And that could also stretch to other people in that audience growing, and like perhaps like a sub community of people who believe in the same things get together in your communities. And I don't think and you guys aren't regulated by the government, so you guys don't necessarily have like a strong grip, I would say, on what is being disseminated within the audiences.
Got you. Okay. So can I ask you really quick how confident you are that this claim is true, that this podcasting equipment and streaming, that this should be regulated? How confident would you say from 0 to 100 you are in that claim?
I would say 100%, because I mean, there's like you have people within the government that are professionals at this stuff. America's long history with like the Red Scare, McCarthyism, counterintelligence within like wiretapping phones within America, things like that. I mean, obviously, breach of privacy, but I think it's necessary overall.
I'm wondering if someone believed the opposite of you, someone believed that podcasts, live streaming, those should not be regulated by governments. What do you think they'd say? What would their reasons be?
The reasoning would be that they believe that everyone has the right to beliefs, and their beliefs should be able to be disseminated into public. I would respond with, obviously, nobody has the right to anything within a society unless they give it to themselves through power and means. And if we live in a society with norms, it should be regulated to an extreme degree. This includes like, I mean, like, I think those people would obviously align themselves with like Julian Assange, who got Americans killed within the Middle East, and say he does, it was all right for him to do that.
Got you. Okay, so introvert, you said that you were at 100%. So is there any information then that you could find out, or data you could find out, that would increase your confidence that this is true then?
Yeah, the free dissemination of knowledge being a benefit for all people in society, unregulated.
Okay. And so being at 100, what would that do to your confidence at 100% then?
It would destroy it if it did.
Oh, that would decrease. Sorry, I was asking about increase. I wasn't asking about decrease. I want to know what would increase your confidence at 100%.
Oh, I thought you said what would it do? Oh, what would increase? Well, there's no increasing at 100%.
Okay, all right.
Like,
I was just making sure.
Any further evidence wouldn't increase my confidence. It would just, it's already at 100%. I don't think there's anything greater than 100%.
I agree with you. It's just sometimes people start to think differently after that. That's why I asked. But okay. So what would decrease it then is if you found out that it was beneficial for the nation, for if people can freely disseminate knowledge. Is that it essentially?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any specific information that you could share that it's not beneficial? I guess you've already done it on some scale, but do you have any other examples maybe?
Specific examples?
I'm actually asking for larger examples, like a large scale, maybe something that isn't
When
a
has there ever
case.
been free? When has there ever been a free dissemination of information within a society?
I think that is a good question. That's a good point. Yeah, so the idea is we've never really had that to know whether or not that's beneficial or not.
Well, no. There's a reason why it's never been. Well, it has been. It has happened for a few times on occasions, and the few times it's happened has always been like on a micro scale or even macro, I guess, if you want to say, for like a large scale society with the wiretapping. As I said, it has always been negative whenever you don't have these things. That's why they happen.
When you don't have regulations? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when you don't have regulations. I mean,
okay. Why?
Do you guys yourselves believe that? Do you guys believe you should be able to just allow whoever onto your show and allow them to speak their mind freely?
Well, I personally wouldn't allow anyone on this show. Just anyone, I mean. So, and I think, Pierce and Sushi can give their own thoughts, but
Yeah, I agree.
Who wouldn't you allow?
Anybody
Alex
that
Jones.
Yeah.
Just being honest.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Why Alex Jones in particular? Is that because of a TOS reason, or is that because of you don't like him personally, or is that because of you don't want him to disseminate information?
I think some of the things that he has said in the past have caused a lot of harm, and I wouldn't want to be any part of spreading that information that has caused harm, and I wouldn't want to be part of doing that again in the future.
I see.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much the same.
I would agree. I would agree absolutely. He's a wacko. He's a nut job.
Yeah. So introvert, to ask you this then, do you think there would be any? What are the potential negatives of allowing the government to regulate these platforms? Do you think there are any?
On what level? I think on absolute regulation.
No, I'm sorry. If we did that, if we gave the government absolute power to regulate who could and could not have podcasts or other forms of media, do you think there would be any negatives, or do you think there wouldn't be?
Perhaps. I mean, I guess a breach of privacy is a negative for some people. Depend on the person what you see as a negative, but yeah, there would be negatives, but I don't look at it as in terms of just the negatives and what's the positives. I look at the overall positives versus the negatives.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree that we should do that.
I don't think you agree totally with what I believe in, because I believe in just pretty much just complete state censored, state controlled media. I don't think you guys. I think talk shows like this are dangerous, actually. To be completely honest.
Gotcha. Yeah, what I was saying I agree with was weighing the positives and negatives, and not just assuming because there are positives or there are negatives that necessarily says anything about what your position should be, that you need to take it as a whole. That's the part that I was agreeing with.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
So then the idea, I think you've kind of already said this, so I think we've covered most of the bases. Pierce, do you have anything else?
No, I don't think I have anything else to ask.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's fine. See ya.
I'd like to talk more about this. Yeah, go ahead, introvert.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, actually, I want to ask: have I changed your mind? Do you guys believe that you're going to be more proactive in the way you allow people onto your show?
Well, I kind of already had it in mind to do that. I think maybe the issue here, introvert, is you had an issue with the first person that called in. Is that correct? With the allowance of the first person? Is that
No? Well,
okay.
to a degree, yeah, but not just the overall way people are let onto the show. I think it should be pre-vetted candidates.
Oh, okay. Well, we are doing some of that. It's just behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So maybe that helps a little bit. But I think we're in agreement that media outlets, especially with the fact that pretty much anybody can create them has caused some issues there. I think that's the common ground between us.
Absolutely.
And definitely we want solutions to those issues.
Well, do you believe in the freedom of press?
I do personally, yes.
So you don't see those shows as they should be shut down, right?
I have different solutions in my mind about what we would do to limit or nullify the harms of shows or the things that are said on shows. One of those things might be government intervention for sure, you know. And you know, like a lot of platforms have their own ways of managing things that I'm okay with that too. Sorry, go ahead, introvert.
So what is freedom of press to you then?
It is the right of people or organizations to disseminate information, opinions, even. I think that's the overall idea. That doesn't mean that it should be allowed in every circumstance, but that's the general premise.
Okay. Wait, well, I mean, in every circumstance, I mean, I don't know, what circumstances?
In circumstances where, well, I think this is a little bit becoming about what I think, and I don't want to be evasive here either, introvert. So I think maybe it's best, I would be more than willing to have a personal conversation with you outside of the show on this. It's just kind of not the point of the show, but I am interested in it and I want to share these ideas. I just don't think that this is the right place for it. Would that be okay?
Fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank
What's
you,
your Discord? Can you just like plop it in the side chat or something?
Yeah. It is. Well, it is Honest Ape. Or are you asking about the Street Epistemology Discord?
Yeah.
Can somebody please do that for me? Thank you so much, introvert. Yeah, please go check that out. There are usually people in there to talk to, and you'll see me in there too. And I think we should have an important conversation about this.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks, introvert.
Before we jump into the next caller, I just want to say a few of my personal thoughts. This is me speaking, not anybody else. I think that street epistemology and having a show like this, I think it's a really good way to talk about beliefs and get people to think about the reasons why they might hold a belief. And then that gives them the opportunity to change their mind if they think that it is warranted. So that is personally why I love to do street epistemology, because I think that it helps people uncover truth.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Cool.
Let's see.
All right. So for those of you who are watching, again, this is the Street Epistemology call-in show, where we talk to people about their beliefs, right? And we question their reasoning and see if their reasoning can stand up their own scrutiny, right? Like, Quayd, have you ever questioned some of your own beliefs using this method?
Lots and lots. It's been a long road.
Right.
I do it very often.
Yeah, I know for me, it's like it's changed the way I look at the world, because I always have to like stop and think. It's like, why do I believe that? It's like, well, somebody told me it 10 years ago. Is that really a good reason to like believe something is true? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think so, right?
You can really end up going down the rabbit hole too once you start to question things. You think about this research that you heard and that convinced you, and then you go try to find the original research paper and you can't find it anymore. And I think it's just a difficult thing, but I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think some of those things can kind of create like epistemic humility, being humble about what we say we know, and kind of be more careful about what we say that we think or we believe, or making claims and such.
Yeah, certainly. All right. So if you guys want to, talk about one of your beliefs, if you think your reasoning is like really good reason, raise your hand, reach out to one of our moderators in chat and let them know what you believe, and then we can bring you up on stage. Our next caller is actually from last week at the end of the show. We were talking about universal basic income and why taxes going up is bad, and they had done their homework and is getting back to us to see if their mind changed at all. Welcome back.
Hey,
It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's really nice. I when you messaged me and told me that you did your research, I was super excited about this, man. Like, I want people to have good reasons to reach conclusions, and you going and doing homework to check to find better reasons. It's beautiful, man. I love it. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I
So
do want to clarify most of I guess the work I did was mostly soul searching, and I was watching YouTube's kind of close to my religion, and I was watching a video on hypocrisy, and it pointed some hypocrisies out to me, like how, in America, like if we're for capitalism, we might look at something from communism that's really bad and be like, look, see how terrible communism is, but it's like you look at Russia before the Russian Revolution, like they were in terrible shape, but communism industrialized them.
So you've done a little bit of like thinking about it, and you're kind of like, well, maybe it's helped in some other countries, is kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and I became aware of with these political ideologies, it's really common to be like, this is the best way. All throughout the 1900s, we saw how America versus Russia, capitalism versus communism, both trying to prove who's the best when maybe neither's the best. Each of them have their pros and each of them have their cons.
Yeah, so for those of who are watching, some hobos claim last week that universal basic income is bad, which universal basic income is, basically giving people money so they can like afford things like groceries and housing, and that because it could cause taxes to going up. So we're just kind of following up with this caller and or with some hobo, and they're telling us about how they've done their soul searching, and maybe their view has changed a little bit, right?
Yeah. In our message, I told you I did find a scenario where I actually do agree with universal basic income. So Alaska, they have these, so much oil comes out of there, and from my understanding, it's state-owned land, and so every person in Alaska gets paid $2,000 to live there. And I'm all for that one. I'm not because I consider that a type of universal basic income, even though they're not calling it that. They're calling it the. I have it written down here.
So has your confidence changed at all in the claim that universal basic income is bad?
Yeah, I don't even believe that anymore. I don't
Oh, wow.
necessarily see it as bad. Yeah.
Wow. That's a pretty big shift, man. Well, I gotta say, like, I commend you for like being open to changing your mind, because like that's only when we learn is when we realize that we could be wrong, right? So thank you.
Yeah, this is a moment where we can say epistemology works. We've succeeded.
Brilliant. Awesome.
Well,
thank you so much. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so the two things I wrote down when we talked last week were when tax rates drop, does tax revenue increase?
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of funny, most of the articles on that were from like 2010 through 2012, and so now I know where my teacher got it. The reason they're all from that time is because Mitt Romney made that claim. and the guy who's running as a Republican in the 2012 presidential election. And so my teacher would have probably gotten that from him. And so that's why all these articles are all about it. And the conclusion I came to, those economists do not necessarily agree with that. So that's why you don't see anything on that anymore. But the reason I saw they gave was on the same years that tax rates went down, tax revenue also went down, which I don't believe is a proper way to really test that, because, you know, it take longer for that to take effect, you know, like maybe 10 years or something. But I took a macroeconomics class in college, and I remember my teacher saying, like, making a claim like the taxes might go down, or tax revenue might go up, or GDP might go up, but taxes go down. The thing is, there's so many things affecting the economy at a certain time. It's really hard to say, oh, this one trait makes blank happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's very complicated. I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah, that's certainly, like, I don't know enough about economics, and really, unless you have a degree, I don't think anybody really does. And the best we can do is, research like you have and kind of form the best opinion that we can. And yeah, it's about what we get.
In my soul searching, one thing I did realize for myself, so now my belief is we should have a variety of types of governments throughout the world to give people different ways to be what fits their personality. And I know for me, I don't necessarily want to live in a society with universal basic income, but I definitely want to live in a society with hopefully income tax less than 20%.
Okay. All right. All right. So, well, thank you. We've got a bunch of other people that are looking to come on, and thank you again for doing
Thanks,
your
SumHobo.
homework and getting back to it. It was very interesting. Take care. So,
All right, thanks, guys.
bye-bye.
Before we bring up the next person, should we just again reiterate that street epistemology is a way of having conversations on controversial topics, but in a cordial manner. So the idea is that we will ask critical questions, and we want to understand how you come to know what you know, and have a conversation about whether or not that's reliable, but basically not be rude about it. And then also we want to talk about the Street Epistemology Discord. We've been linking it. We'll continue to link it in the chats and the Navigating Beliefs course. This is a course that teaches you how to do street epistemology. If this way of conversation appeals to you, you can go to navigatingbeliefs.com and learn more. And then, of course, we have YouTube channels, Facebook, Reddit, X. So we're on all the platforms. Go check them out.
Yeah, it's interesting, you're saying about it being like this non-confrontational approach. It's like, sometimes I find myself, getting into the debate with people, and we start, things start to get escalated. And then I kind of like switch on the light switch for SE or street epistemology. And I kind of like take things down, listen, right, and reflect back. And the conversations end up becoming so much more productive. And sometimes even my mind changes, right? Because I'm actually hearing them, right? And sometimes their reasons are good, right? I don't know. Have you had the same experience at all?
A lot. Yeah, I've had that exact same experience. That's why I like this conversation style, because it's like people have made the mistake of thinking that it's about changing the other person's minds. And I think if you do it that way, that's not good SC. That's not good street epistemology. If good street epistemology is when you are ready to change your own mind based on the conversation that you're talking, the topic that you're talking about.
Yeah, certainly. All righty. Welcome, Jacob. I'm going to let Pierce take this with you.
All right.
Hey, what's up, Jacob?
Hey, what's up, Pierce? Were you guys able to see my claim, or should I?
Please reiterate it. Please give it to us again. Sorry.
So my belief is that affirmative action tends to actually not really curtail racism or even help a population on that matter, because I feel like you guys know the saying, teach a man how to fish, not give them fish.
Yes, I've heard that
And
before.
I think that it's better to support merit-based systems because it's actually being garnered off of your own efforts and feats versus just the history of your ancestors. And I
Gotcha.
believe that
Right, just
affirmative
really quick,
action
sorry.
you-
I want to make sure that I understand you here because you're talking about several things at once, and I always write these things down. So it's affirmative action tends to not. What was it again?
it doesn't really combat racism. Instead, it just keeps the population down because it doesn't really teach you to work on your own merit.
Got
It
you.
uses the history in the past of whatever happened to your ancestors, more likely recent history, like past 200, 300 years. And it says because of that, you aren't able to do this. I feel it more brings down people than helps them.
Got you. So how confident would you say that you are in that statement? Affirmative action tends to not
100%.
100%. Okay.
If maybe this might be a little anecdotal, but I lived in California quite a bit. We have a very heavy affirmative action system in place for admissions to college, getting scholarships, loans, especially when it comes to affordable housing and Medicaid or Medicare. That's what we call it here, or Medi-Cal. And then we had race quotas at one of my jobs, actually two of my jobs. I worked at a boardwalk and I worked at Best Buy when I was a teenager. And they had to make sure that there was a certain amount of each race in the workplace and sex before they could continue with their year. And that's what they would actively search for.
Okay. Is there something in all of that? So you know that these things are going on. Is there information you have related to these things that convinced you or supported your belief in this claim here?
So I've seen a lot of studies being done where so despite like Asians, right, like Asian Americans and Indian Americans having some of the highest SAT scores in the planet, or not the planet, but in our nation, they have a harder time getting into colleges or even getting aid for those colleges for matter without having a much higher standard of education than, let's say, African American or Hispanic or Latino person. If you've noticed, when you go to sign up for a university, they always ask you what your race is. And the first question is, yes or no, are you of Hispanic or Latino origin? And then they ask you if you're a minority. And more often than not, people would rather, this was also have to do with the affirmative action case that the Supreme Court looked into with Harvard.
Okay.
And I've noticed that also at my school. It's where there's a lot of reverse racism where if you're a minority, they'll treat you a lot better than if you were white or if you were Asian American.
Okay, so is the idea here then that basically any program or system that makes it difficult for groups of people with, say, high SAT scores or high marks in K through 12 to go into college, then that system does not combat the keeping down of that group?
Well, I feel like so the thing is, right, you get less help for doing better or you get less push, right? I don't think that's what we should be looking into. I feel like we should push people who are really succeeding to succeed even more and strive. I think people who put in more effort and try to work towards their own merit deserve more, right? I feel that if they're actually willing to do those things, they should continue to get the aid. I've noticed like people with 2.0 GPAs or people who aren't really doing that good are being accepted into these universities without any of the qualities needed. And they
Gotcha.
kind of waste a lot of money there and time. I feel like you're just wasting their time
Gotcha.
when they could be doing something that they enjoy.
Okay, so there seems to be two things here. I do want to go back, if we can, to this idea that affirmative action doesn't combat racism, right? There's another claim here that I think is also important, which is that affirmative action doesn't promote a meritocracy properly or kind of rewarding people on merit, right? But in terms of the combat racism, again, is this related to what you were talking about before, in that you are seeing Asian Americans or Indian Americans with high scores not get into colleges? Is that it?
Well, it's the that you need higher academic credentials as an Asian American as opposed to other race. So they're already separating people based on race and not by their own actions and their character. and they're seeing race as a way of how good you are at something, and I think that is a very, very dangerous path to go down. It's almost like we're going back 60 years.
Got you.
I don't like that kind of like future.
Okay. So Jacob, you're already at 100%, so I don't think there's a point in asking you what would increase your confidence unless you think there is. But so I will ask you, is there any information that you could discover that would decrease your confidence in your claim here?
I mean, it could probably bring me down to 95%, but I think the only thing that would really decrease my confidence in this is if there was a rework of how affirmative action works, because I think the current system is reverse racism and it definitely needs reform. So I think it should be based off of people's merit and their income, not on their race.
Okay, so affirmative action in its current form is the issue. So you're okay with the idea of some type of affirmative action, just not the one we have right now. Is that correct?
I think scholarships used to actually like go for people who couldn't afford college back then. Where if you couldn't afford college and you had the correct GPA, 4.0 GPA, volunteer service, and your record looked pretty good, you would get that scholarship. Now, weighing in your race on top of that seems like a very, very racial structure to me, and I don't believe in that. I don't believe in seeing race in anything and a person's abilities to do something.
Well, I don't want to bogart here. Pierce, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think I might need a little, maybe clarification on something. I think what I heard was like, I think you're saying that the people who believe opposite of you believe that affirmative action does combat racism. I think what you're saying is they are saying that race, judging someone by their race is how we combat racism. Is that kind of what you're saying, or am I off?
I'm just saying it's kind of like almost a hypocritic way to do it.
Okay.
If you're trying to combat racism, why are you looking at race in the very first place? Aren't we supposed to try to bring everybody to a level playing field? If you ignore a race while trying to help other races, you're now favoring races, and all you've done is shifted the racism to other groups.
If we brought someone up here that actually thinks that affirmative action does combat racism, what do you think that they would say?
I think that they would bring up the historical injustices done against African Americans and Latinos, but most likely, if we're talking about someone who's from North America.
Okay, that's what they would say. And why would it?
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You can expand a little bit.
I was going to say, from experience on the server and just experience of living in California, I've noticed that a lot of people's arguments tend to be from before 1865 and then up till the Civil Rights Act. Okay.
So I think what you're saying is those problems were in the past and not present. Am I hearing that correctly?
I'm saying that you would be repeating a mistake of the past to then favor a different race. That's what I'm saying. All we're doing is kind of cycling it.
I understand. Okay, gotcha.
I believe that nobody should be treated negatively for someone else's benefit.
Okay.
Saying, have you been on the Street Epistemology Discord at all?
No, I actually can't find I was trying to get the server link.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Make sure that hopefully if our mods are in here, if you can post the links and also to Navigating Beliefs, I think you could totally ace it. So if you don't know, the Navigating Beliefs is like basically the free course of how to do this. Just go to navigatingbeliefs.com. I mean, you can do it in like an hour. I'm sure you'd be able to blow through it less than that. But yeah, check it out. You'll absolutely love it. And come over to the Discord. We'll be after, because I'd like to talk to you more about this.
Oh yeah. All right. I didn't see it when it got posted earlier. Were you guys DMing it to people or?
Yeah, one of our people should be reaching out to you. If not, I'll make sure that I message you directly.
That's fine.
All right.
Yeah, but if you did want to get someone up here who at that side,
that would be nice. Yeah, if there was somebody that disagreed. I think maybe we already have somebody coming up next, but that would be interesting to hear somebody else's views, the opposite view.
Cool.
I'm not sure
if
there's anyone. Yep.
Thanks, Jacob.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening.
All right, you too.
Have a good night, Jacob. I agree with you, by the way. All right. So the statement that I had was that Not having access to uncensored AI is a form of information and ability poverty.
Not having access to uncensored AI
Is a form of poverty for ability and information.
is poverty for information. Okay. Beautiful. How confident are you that this is the case?
I think it's completely true.
Okay, 100% confident?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay, terrific. What makes you think that this is the case?
It's similar to access to guns. It's like a complete shift in our culture, and like the AI that I've seen can do things at a level higher than many master's degrees. Like
Mm,
ChatGPT alone has several master's degrees at this point. So not having access to the uncensored, like rapid version of that is a massive loss for everyone involved. I'm sure you've used ChatGPT and had plenty of conversations where it just stopped you from saying anything, or it never answered your question, or you were just unable to do something that another AI would be able to do, or that ChatGPT itself is able to do on the development version.
okay, sure. Can we bounce back to the claim for a second? You said that it was like poverty for information. What are you meaning by poverty, just so we can be clear?
Um, I mean that compared to what would be possible if they did have access to that information, they'd be far better off. There's plenty of people that
Okay.
have a complete lack of education or a limited education, or they're just unable to find important information that is accessible, that the AI knows, or that the AI can easily find, compared to a person looking for it in the same period of time.
Okay.
So you're
So,
losing out on a massive amount of efficiency.
okay. So an example might be a person might take like, I don't know, 20 hours to research something and find some information, where an AI might have it presented to them in, under a minute.
Yeah, rather than presented to them, they could directly build the thing that is being researched and just test it if they want. Or you can have like an AI like print out some glasses for you that show an overlay of how you could build the thing, and then you get whatever resources are available in your environment. Say, here's what I have, help me manufacture this.
Okay.
It's that sort of like expert assistance that you might only be able to get from a close family member or something. The AI might know you from like if you post everything you've ever written, every bit of schoolwork you've ever done, you give it to the AI, then it will know you well enough that it can help you find whatever you're looking for a lot better than another person.
Interesting stuff. When you say access to this uncensored AI, is this technology that we're talking about that we like currently have built and have as humans? Okay.
Yeah, we currently have access to it. Like I've downloaded like 2 uncensored AI that are basically like what ChatGPT was once it started getting famous.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's not very smart and it thinks very slowly, but like it can be trained to this level very quickly.
Hmm.
Like we have it right now where like we can tell the AI to print something, just say, hey, design this for me, you check this, all right, and then print it. And they can either print it, pay someone to assemble it, or do some other equivalent. And Chat GPT passes for human more often than a human does. It passes the Turing tests at a higher rate.
Okay. Is there ever any danger with this technology?
Yeah, but the danger of not having access to the technology is worse than the danger of having access. Like if everyone has access to this technology, then that means everyone has countermeasures against it too.
Okay. Can you imagine a scenario in which having access to this uncensored AI and using the information that it provides, what it tells you, and it actually have a negative impact on a person who's using it?
Yeah, definitely. The issue is that like it's a magnification of what the person would already be able to have access to. It's like
Huh?
if you gave a criminal universal basic income, do you think they'd be more likely to commit crimes or less?
Mm,
Like
okay.
I think they would be less likely to commit crimes, but they'd also be less likely to work if they're the sort of person that ended up as a criminal in the first place. But like if you gave them a cow or a sheep or something, they'd be more likely to look after an animal than they would be to like start their own business or run a store.
Okay. I think
If
I
you give,
got you.
you know, if you give someone a stall and you say like, here's a place you can park this, like this is going to be the place that works. We've had this work several times before. It could be like a market in the middle of town or something. There's a parking lot where it's been designated as like the town market. Like it's one of those places where just having access to it is a massive improvement over not having anything.
Gotcha. So I guess I had asked
Yeah,
about
here's,
what
go ahead.
about the negatives, what negatives could come for that person from having access to this.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I
so,
completely understood.
yeah, they can mislead themselves. They can create their own echo chamber using the AI.
Hmm.
They can access dangerous technology. They can design dangerous technology. They could probably produce bioweapons if they wanted to. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't take much even for a normal person to do that. Like even during medieval times, you get a person who died, or that you take someone who was put into prison. Like when they're killed or while they're alive, you just shoot them over the wall of a fortified town, and that counts as biowarfare.
Hmm. Okay.
Just the amount of corpses would do the damage. Like there is already an extreme level of access to this information and the ability to produce this stuff. It's just that people don't. But like we already have like something akin to uncensored AI in how we interact with other people. Like with the amount of money many people have, like this is the richest time in human history. This is the safest time in human history. There's the fewest number of wars per capita, lowest number of rape, lowest number of like a lot of things. It's just that because our population is so large, the extremes are getting more extreme, and there's more average people being born. Like there's more hyper average people than have ever existed.
All right, I'd like to
Gotcha.
ask one more question, and then I'll let Quaid jump in here. Given all these negatives that you described, should you be at 100% confident for your claim if there's all these potential negative outcomes?
I think we already have access to those negative options already, and we've shown that we're pretty responsible with it. So why didn't like what the negatives I described are the same negatives that we would have if we increased our population or we stayed at our current population, or if we had access to guns, if we had access to cars, if we had access to like phones, computers, anything we currently have access to, there's a similar 0 to 1 difference for access and ability. It's such a
Okay.
major improvement and such a major change that it affects everything else.
Kind of like how that when the internet was invented, a lot more people had access to more information. Kind of like that
Yes.
same thought. Okay, gotcha.
But even when even when they got access to the internet, they still had access to the information even before that. They might have to go to the next town, in the next city, or to a different country, but they already had access to that information, and it's just a little bit more difficult.
You want to jump in here, Quid?
I actually do not have any questions. So
All right. Has your confidence shifted at all? Have you remained at 100%?
No, I'm just glad I was able to explore the conversation a bit more by talking.
thank you, Monkey.
Fantastic. Me too. Lovely conversation.
Yep. All right.
Have a
Bye
good
now.
night.
See ya.
Okay, so maybe reset the room a little bit. Again, this is Street Epistemology. It's a way of politely inquiring about what your beliefs are, how you came to those beliefs, and whether or not your method for coming to those beliefs is reliable, something that maybe other people should adopt. So we will ask you some questions, but we'll do it in a polite way, and that is basically Street Epistemology. You can check out the Street Epistemology Discord server. Unfortunately, we are not able to post the link, I know now, in the chat. You should be able to find it online. You can go to streetepistemology.com. and I think they should have the Discord links there. While you're at it, you can go to Navigating Beliefs, which is a course at navigatingbeliefs.com, where you can learn this method if you are interested. If you like what you're hearing, if you think that some of the conversations we've been having here go better than the ones you hear. We've heard already some shifting of confidences, some deep inquiries into people's thoughts. So again, if those things interest you, you can learn how to do those things at navigatingbeliefs.com. And so with that, Pierce or Sushi, anything else that I forgot that I should have said there?
No, I
Nope.
think you kind of hit everything on the head. Yeah, you can. I think you just do a Google search for Street Epistemology Discord; it'll come up. Or we can send out DMs or put in the chat if you want to DM, and we'll send you a share link to it. All right, are you guys ready for the next caller?
Let's do it.
All right, send them up. Somebody?
Maybe. Who is the next caller supposed to be?
It is. Let's see. I think Nick was on top though. Clark. Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I thought Clark was next. Oh. All right. Oh, we lost both of them. Okay. Well, while they're figuring out who's coming up next, yeah, how has street epistemology changed your life, Pierce? I know it's changed mine. I think Quayd said it has too. Like, how has street epistemology affected your life?
Yeah, it's changed my life in a pretty profound way. I think I've changed my mind on quite a few different topics. Not only from talking with people, but definitely talking with people has shifted my confidence on a few different things. But also watching the videos has shifted my confidence. Listening to people explain their reasoning and be like, oh, that reasoning actually can make some sense. Or if they have reasoning that is the same as mine, it's almost like my reasoning is being examined as well. So it's really a great thing for me.
Yeah, never thought about that. Like, kind of thinking about your own reasoning when you're interviewing somebody. It's an interesting perspective. But looks we have our next caller. I'll let you guys have it. Or is this quantum mechanics?
No, I'm not the quantum mechanics person.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, welcome to the stage anyway. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a very interesting chat so far. So my the way you pronounce my name is Way.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna ask.
Under or WL or whatever. And basically my claim is going to be that religion as a cultural concept is not inherently harmful. And it would actually benefit society for most people to learn about it.
What were you saying?
Correct. The cultural concept, the practice of religions, is not inherently harmful. And yeah, that is two claims. My bad.
Do you have one that you would want to an aspect that you would want to focus on more in terms of those two claims?
We can do the religion is an inherently harmful one. Probably that's probably the main one.
Okay, great. So, and I know some people don't like this, but I'm still going to do it. How confident are you that this is true?
I would say for that claim, I'm about 75% confident.
Got you. I think that's like the first not 100% of the night. So good on you.
Insane. All right.
Well, that actually makes the next question easier, which is what would increase your confidence in your claim?
I think what would increase my confidence is that if we could show that, whether implicitly or explicitly, people who hold on to religious concepts, like any religious concept in general, have some inherently harmful values towards other people, right? Or basically they think about violence towards other people, or they want to engage in violence against other people.
Okay, that sounds like it might decrease your confidence. Is that correct? Or did I? Let's see. Religion.
No, that would increase it, because my claim is that religion isn't inherently
Oh, okay,
harmful.
gotcha. Sorry. Come on, brain. Okay, so yes, if you found out that people who held those beliefs. Okay, got you. Okay, great. And then so what about decrease?
Decrease would be more than likely if we could show that anybody who holds onto a religious concept is like every single group within the set of religious concept, whether they are capable of compassion towards, or whether they engage in compassion towards people, whether or not they hold on to the same religious concept or not.
Great. So what is your main reason for thinking that this claim is true?
I think that this claim is true mostly because of the history of religion as a cultural concept. I think that religion emerges very on in human evolution and cultural evolution. I would say even before Homo sapiens existed, I think the concept of religious belief existed within other hominid species.
Okay.
And for the longest time, I don't think religion was based on this idea of indoctrination, or it was based on this idea of all the members of the community have to believe the same thing. It was just more so the way in which you practiced. It was just kind of seen as like a universal given that everyone practiced religions in a different way, but that doesn't really mean anything.
Okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, correct me if I'm not, if there's an idea that developed early on in the hominid species, and we have a history of this idea, then that idea as a religious concept is not inherently harmful.
I guess I could clarify that by saying that I don't think that it's the concept of religion itself or any sort of religious idea or worship that leads to harmful things. It's more so the kind of dogmatism and the exclusionary factors that some religious traditions have built into them that are going to lead to more harmful effects.
Okay. Would this be true for other ideas? So there's the idea that the ideas themselves isn't what's harmful. It's maybe the things that people do based off the ideas, or
it's, how do I say this? Yeah, it could definitely apply to other things too. Like I think it applies to nationalism, right? Like, or some sort of national pride, right? Like if you're proud of where you come from, that's one thing. But if you're saying that where you come from is the only way that humans can objectively be or practice like governmental structure, that's going to be another claim that's a little bit more harmful.
Got you. Okay, so let's say we had another person and they believe that religion as a cultural concept is inherently harmful. Do you have maybe an idea of what their main reason would be for saying that?
Yeah, I think that they're going to say this claim because they're looking at the Western tradition of religion and how Abrahamic religions operate. But I think Abrahamic religions aren't the only religious practices that there are. And I think there's a lot more to the concept of religion other than even modern day religions would include. I think going back and looking in going back and looking at the history of like polytheistic religions and even animistic religions or pantheistic religions too could kind of curb this concept of, all religions have inherently baked within them some sort of belief structure, and if you don't believe in this belief structure, then you're just out. You're not seen as human.
Gotcha. So it seems like the people who think differently than you on this or have an opposing opinion are, in your view, mostly focusing on the Western religions. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're focusing on especially Christianity. I would say Protestant Christianity has a lot of these ideas.
Are you more so focusing on Eastern religions yourself?
I don't hold to a specific religious tradition. I'm actually an atheist, so I actually don't think that any spiritual tradition is going to be accurate.
I mean, and just in terms of this claim, when you're forming this claim that they're not necessarily harmful, are you focusing on Eastern religions in particular, or does this claim apply to all religions equally?
I think it applies to all religions equally, even
Gotcha.
Christianity too. So even though we do have, these opinions coming from more of a Christian-centered approach, right? That religion is harmful. I think that there are many examples, even within the Western tradition of Christianity, where we could see that it isn't leading to harmful things inherently.
Got you. One
So
final
what
question
metric-
for me.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you're about to ask it, so go ahead, Sushi.
What metric are you using to measure harm?
The metric that I'm probably going to use is more than likely studies about religious intolerance, right? So how tolerant are religious groups towards other religious groups? How likely is it that somebody who holds on to a religious tradition is going to see somebody who holds on to a different or no religious tradition as being like inhuman, right? So I would say it probably
I'm not
the
sure
scale
that's
of
quite answering my question. It's like how like what are you using to measure what is harm? Unless I was
okay.
misunderstanding. Yeah. Like, is it because of X, Y, or Z? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that the measure is going to be how likely are these people to commit violent action, right? So violence is one, intolerance is going to be another, right? Does that answer the question better, or?
Yeah. So, you were saying that like a metric you use is like how much violence is caused or not caused by people, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So like how do you know how much violence has or hasn't been harmed by religion?
Yeah, I think we can. It's going to be on a probabilistic account, right? It's going to be on a Bayesian analysis, right? So we can't go back and definitively say, I don't think that we're going to ever know completely all the variables for why somebody commits a certain action, right? But if we go back and, for example, we look at, I'm going to use a controversial example, but the Christchurch shooter, right? It's obvious that this person is motivated by a very it's obvious within this person's writing that they're motivated with a specific religious intolerance in mind, towards a specific group of people.
Yeah, so like that's an example of like what you might call harm, right? But like how are you comparing that to evaluate and come to the conclusion that religion doesn't cause harm, right? Like that's an example of of a case that religion is causing harm, but like how many cases of there are like not religious not causing harm, or like how many cases are there of religious causing harm, and like how are you like comparing those metrics?
Yeah, this is a really tricky question, actually. Mostly because I think the metrics for determining how do I say it, or to quantify, how much. I guess I would take the example of things, I don't know, like the Inquisition, right? Or anytime a religious person does something harmful, gauging the reaction from other people within the same religious tradition and seeing whether or not these other people are saying, oh, this action is justified because they're a part of our group, or this action is not justified even if they are a part of our group, right?
So the harm is only harm if it disagrees with the group, or did I mishear
It's not.
you?
No, it's not that it's going to be harm if it disagrees with the group. It's going to be somebody of a religious tradition commits harm, right? And then gauging whether or not that specific religious structure or that specific religious tradition is harmful inherently is going to be looking at how other members of that group take that harmful action, how they perceive it, whether they perceive it as going along with the values of that religious tradition or whether they see it as going against those values, right?
Okay, so you've evaluated from what I understand, like groups of people of particular religious affiliations, and determined how much harm they've created. Is that like kind of what you're saying?
I would say there's many cases in history where we can go back and look at religiously motivated actions of harm. For instance, I think the biggest example would probably be, like, let's say, the First Inquisition, right? And we could see, is this is a case of is this a case of religious causing harm because it's going along with the values that this religious tradition holds, or is it just a person who's acting out violently, not according with the values of a specific religious tradition? So gauging to see how, I guess I would say, I'm going to determine whether or not it's a religious motivation based on what the authority or what a majority of members within that religious tradition are going to say about that violence, are going to agree with it or disagree with it.
So if a majority of people agree on something, does that make it true?
No.
So if you're measuring the amount of harm that is causing from religion based on a majority of decision on something, is that a good reason to believe that religion doesn't cause harm?
It may not be a good reason for religion overall, right? But it could be a good indicator to see whether or not a specific religious tradition is inherently harmful.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions, Abe or Pierce?
Nope. I think that was good.
All right.
I'm good.
Well, how do you say your name again? I'm sorry.
Way.
Love it. Well, thank you for joining us up on stage here. I really appreciate it. It was a really interesting conversation. And I thought it was extra interesting because you said you're an atheist and you're kind of standing up for religion. And I think that's great because it's part of the reason, like, I like street epistemology so much, is it's a cooperative conversation. Like, we're working together to explore a belief rather than arguing. And like you take like almost, working for religion a little bit. It's like working together is when we start to succeed, right? So, but yeah, I check out the navigating beliefs. I think you would really enjoy that. It's a really quick read, and then come join us over on the Discord. We'll be in the after show, in another half hour or so once we wrap up here. So I'd love to talk more to you about that.
All right, sounds great.
Yeah, take care.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful time.
You too. All right. Well, that was so interesting. I really liked that one. It just I'm like stuck on the atheist person, like that, like religion isn't necessarily harmful because it's usually the other way around, right? And like we all have like these kind of like these opinions and these strong views, a lot of times like based on assumptions. And yeah, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say that I have a similar ideas. I think that um, I like the. It seems to me that that Way was considering um, the impact that religion has on individuals and really trying to think about the thing as a whole and not just, I think what happens is sometimes we have these examples in our heads of times where religion has maybe harmed us or the people that we love or care about, and that's all we end up focusing on, as opposed to trying to get a bigger picture of things and think about, especially the conversation about why does religion exist? Like, why is it that humans have this proclivity to be religious? I think is something that you just can't ignore or kind of hand wave away.
Yeah, certainly, because maybe it has helped a lot of people, but like I don't know how to make that metric, right? Like what do you deem as like harmful, right? Because like there's aspects of religion that I might think is harmful, and then there's other aspects of religion that I don't think is harmful that maybe somebody else does, right? So I think it's just a matter of who's making that judgment call. So all
Yep.
right, we ready for the we got another caller.
Here we
already
go.
up here. Mathematician.
Mathematician.
You've got to be
Hey,
the
what's going
one on pilot wave theory.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right.
My claim,
Let me buckle up my
my claim is that pilot wave theory should be the default assumption.
Oh, the default assumption. Interesting. Okay. For not getting too into the weeds with quantum physics, because I know that can get complicated really quick. Maybe we just go right to the reason behind it. Like, why
Hold
do
on,
you
really.
believe that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sushi. I already, me personally, I need pilot wave explained, pilot wave theory
Sure.
definitions.
So there's different interpretations about how photons or light exists. Like either it's a wave or it's a particle, and maybe it's like your consciousness that collapses the wave function, which is the Copenhagen interpretation.
Okay.
And then there's the pilot wave theory, which is that there's a literal wave that pushes these literal particles around, and that each of these particles have a well-defined position in space and time.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Abe. That was a good call. Okay, so pilot wave theory is how basically particles interact on a quantum level, and how a particle can be a wave or a particle, the wave particle duality, right?
Well, it's not a duality. Actually, the pilot wave theory is that there are two separate things. There are the particles, which are the things we observe, and there's a pilot wave that pushes these particles around that we don't observe.
Interesting. Okay.
And so those are two separate things. Yeah.
So a particle and then a pilot wave that pushes the particle, but we can't observe the pilot wave.
That's right. We haven't yet.
Okay. So how do we know that the pilot wave exists?
Because when we measure the motion of the particles, we observe that it obeys this certain wave equation. And the wave equation assumes that the motion of these particles travels along the motion of a wave.
Okay, so make sure I'm understanding. We measure a particle, and it, based on equations, it shows that it moves along a pattern that is a wave. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it looks as though it travels along a wave. It's just we don't see the wave.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. So when you say that, like, you know, you or have like done this, or we, like, how did you come to that? Like, have you observed it, or like what is your reasons that you
Great
found
question.
out about
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
I have not observed it yet, but I'm convinced it's there. And the reason why I'm convinced is, number one, because of the equation. Kind of like how, like, I haven't seen the round Earth yet. I haven't like literally seen the Earth curve with my own eyes,
Mhm.
but I'm pretty certain that the Earth is round because of like certain phenomena that I observe that like fit under a certain model. And so, like, for the same reason, like, it looks like a wave and it talks like a wave, like that's that the motion of these particles follow a wave, but we just don't see the wave. And I think that their other interpretations are deliberately invented by religious fanatics.
Okay, so how confident are you that pilot wave theory should be the default assumption on like a scale of like 1 to 100?
Nine out of 10.
9 out of 10. Okay, that's pretty confident. Okay, so going back there, you said that you know, you haven't directly observed it, but based on the math, it kind of has told you that like this is the case, right? Like in the same way that, you know, maybe we looked at the math of the Earth, but haven't actually observed the Earth being round. Is that like a good summary of what you said?
Yeah. I also think like our consciousness has nothing to do with the motion of those particles.
Okay. Um. So if so with the math, right? So how did you validate or check to see if the math is, you know, correct?
Oh, because the wave function has been verified empirically.
Mm.
So when we assume that there's a wave and apply the wave function, the math checks out. The reason why, you know, people reject the pilot wave is, number one, that we don't observe it, and number two, it's because I think that like it's better to have certain ideologies like quantum mysticism. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, which is like a, you know, fairy tale exaggeration of quantum physics.
Yeah, to not get too lost in the weeds there, just kind of stay back at it. If you know, you said like it's the empirically based, but like how did you figure out this information, right? So you know, like obviously, like you know about this, but I'm directly asking you, like, where did you get this information from?
That's a good question. I haven't actually directly measured the wave function. I am familiar with the wave function mathematically. Like I do understand like each unit in the, and like what each unit in the formulas represent, and
So,
like why, you know,
sorry to
multiplies
interrupt you
through
there.
things.
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
that's quite answering my question. My question is like, how did you get that information, right? Like,
Oh, I got, yeah,
yeah.
some college guy, yeah. Some-
Oh, okay. Some professor taught you once. Okay. Have you done anything to or have you checked or measured to determine whether or not somebody else disagrees with you? Like, what is the
Oh, there are many people who disagree with me. For example, Einstein said God does not play with dice. That's like the most famous disagreement of the pilot wave theory, is that like God exists and he doesn't like, you know, just randomness and chaos. He likes some sort of intention. And so I think he would be the biggest proponent against pilot wave theory.
Okay, so if two scientists disagree about it, right? And have you only like spoken to like one professor about this, or have you spoken to like other scientists about it?
Directly about the wave equation, just one professor, but
Okay. So if there you have two people, right, and like you went to this person and they told you it's right, and then like let's say Joe, they go up to a different college professor, and this college professor explains to them that that's the correct interpretation, right?
Mhm.
How do we determine who's correct?
Occam's razor. I use Occam's razor. I think it begs more questions when we say that it is our consciousness that collapses the wave function into a discrete location. I think that's begs more questions than it answers. I think to say God does not play with dice begs more questions than it answers. So those are different things.
Okay, so if is it possible, or I don't like to use that phrasing, how would you find out if your professor was wrong?
I would if I saw a multiverse, I'd be convinced. If I like peeked into a different multiverse that it was somehow connected with our multiverse via a wave function, I'd be pretty convinced I was wrong. If I saw, well, I don't really know what consciousness is, so I don't really understand the other interpretation that much. I think it's kind of fairy tale La La Land, kind of like quantum mysticism.
Okay.
But what would I mean? Just any other model proven empirically, like beyond what we have right now, I would seem convincing to me.
If because we have these two different views, right, and these two people that have been told about a particular scientific thing, and they both believe it's correct, but there's still like some interpretation there. Is it a good reason to be at a really high confident if we could be wrong about it?
I think so, and I think it's because that there's I think religious intent that's trying to muddy the waters between these interpretations.
Okay. All righty. Cool. You guys have any questions for Mathematician?
I do have one.
Okay.
Sorry if you feel like you've already answered this, but so my question is there a second best explanation to the information that you're providing that you can think of and share?
Well, so yes, it is the Copenhagen interpretation,
Okay.
which is actually the majority opinion in the scientific community. The pilot wave theory is a very minority opinion. But I believe that the Copenhagen interpretation is kind of like I don't know. I view them the same way some people view flat earthers.
Can you elaborate on that?
Like a flat earther, I think, is unwilling to acknowledge, a certain framework about the earth and the geometry of the earth. And, they'll make claims that like, well, have you seen it? Have you seen the curved earth? And the answer is, no, I haven't. And I have a pilot wave. But like the math checks out. It really does. And, but the other thing is Copenhagen interpretation. It leads people to believe in like, I think very metaphysical things. And I think it prevents people from sticking to like a physicalist perspective.
One more question for me. Is there any way to use the Copenhagen interpretation without a mystic component? Or
ultimately, like I think they try to pretend that they can get away with like not making it so mystical, but at some point the Copenhagen interpretation admits that it's your consciousness or your observation that determines the location of these particles, which I think is absolutely absurd.
Okay. Those are my only questions then.
Cool. Awesome. So you said a couple of things about consciousness, and I would absolutely love to talk more to you about that if you'd be interested.
Sure.
Yeah, make sure that if who's all in here yet, if Jack or Dax or one of you can message Mathematism for the Street Epistemology server, because I love to talk about consciousness. It's super fun.
Oh,
So,
cool. All right.
yeah, it was a pleasure talking with you, man. Very
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was
Yeah, see you,
fun.
Mathematician.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right. That was so interesting. I love quantum physics. So we'll take yeah, it does get really cool. And thanks for the catch on getting to explain pilot wave. I was afraid of getting too physicsy. But
No, I
that
understand.
would've
I
left
thought about it
everybody
once he
confused.
started too. We'll talk about it
Yeah.
later.
Yep, thanks. Well, we have enough time for one more caller. Are they still here? Oh, go ahead, Nick.
What are the topics?
Okay. Yeah, whoever's been waiting the longest, I think it would be fair to give them the shot. And then yeah,
Agreed.
for everyone else, we'll be here next week, same time, 2000 or 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There should be the event up top, so you can click that and get the reminders.
And we'll also be
you know,
around. We'll be in the Street Epistemology Discord server. And so if you see one of us, feel free to talk about the things you want to talk about.
Yeah, that will probably be in this server a little bit more too. So we might have
Yeah.
some impromptu call-in shows. So if you look for the channel, you see Street Epistemology, like, come and bring your claims, man. We'd love to talk to you. All right.
Neurotic Shrimp.
All right. Good evening. How are you guys?
Good. About yourself?
Delightful.
I am good. So I picked this topic because I figured it's the most wild position that I'm willing to defend. I figured it'd be a good conversation. So basically, Carl Jung, he would make the stance that we talked a lot about religion, we talked about a lot of consciousness, but the idea that the religious symbols are symbols of the unconscious, of our consciousness, of our brain, of psyche, and that, you should integrate these things into your life. And I want to word this properly. That there is a lot. I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of subjectivity in the interpretation of these symbols because, if someone looks at, let's say, an obvious example would be a cross. One person might think bliss, another person might think horror. And so that's very subjective. And so that has to be overcome.
Gotcha. Okay, so the claim here is religious symbols are symbols of the unconscious. Was that the word that you used, or subconscious? Which one?
The best word is unconscious, but we should integrate these into your psyche.
And then we should integrate them into our daily lives. Is that the...
Yeah, and into your daily lives. One common thing might be, let's say, anger. If people aren't aware of the fact that they're being angry, that's a very common one that people don't integrate healthily into themselves. Another one might be sexuality. They don't integrate into yourself, and it goes further.
Got you. And so when you say religious symbols, are you talking about like crosses,
So there's a lot of religious stories. This includes Christianity. This includes, let's say, Native American storytelling. This includes, Hindu symbolism, stuff like that. But these are allegories.
Okay, so just clarify. Okay, so you mean like the stories of the narratives themselves, not necessarily like just like the raw icons.
I will not limit it to one religion because these stories have been told in so many different facets.
Gotcha. How confident are you that this claim is true?
So I feel it deeply with myself, but I also acknowledge the intense subjectivity of it. Because, if I use a scientific methodology, a scientific razor, I I can't make a falsification mechanism, so it doesn't apply to science. So that's, a problem.
Okay. I'm going to try something a little different here. If you had all of your possessions to wager, what percentage of your possessions, and if you win, you double it. If not, you lose your possessions. What percentage would you wager that this claim is true?
I suppose this makes me a loose cannon because I would wager it all. And I think that pillar of faith is a test. The fact that you're willing to actually like push into the world it differentiates your mindset intensity. And that's a different caliber of person that's willing to exert themselves into the world. Like someone like Elon Musk, like that person exerts himself into the world and risks it all the time. And he just says it's going to be this way. And like, that's like a pillar that lots of people don't incorporate.
Got you. Okay. So what information that you can recall convinced you that this claim was true?
So it's ultimately subjective, and I think that makes people uncomfortable because I have to acknowledge that. But I've read the religious books. I've read Carl Jung.
Okay.
I've even gone so far and crazy as looked at my own dreams and like pondered, like the worst one was I'm falling off an icy cliff into some icy icicles and like constantly looping that and like. It's a RuneScape throw home button. So like I'm just going home, falling off an icy cliff. And that's a bad dream, right? Like that's cold, that's scary.
Sure.
And that was actually a particularly bad time in my life.
Gotcha. So what's the number one reason? Let's stick with that. What's the number one reason that you have that you could articulate shortly that this claim is true?
I'm actually I find that because of my mentality, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I'm a very quiet person. But slowly over time, things seem to get better when
you've done this. Okay.
Yeah. When I've adopted this mindset slowly over time, It seems to get better.
So the idea is that you did this and it seems your life is getting better. So this to you is strong evidence that this claim is true. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's, I suppose, the best evidence.
Okay. I wonder, is there anybody that could have this same reasoning for something? They've implemented something into their daily lives and their lives get better, but that thing be untrue.
Right. So actually, I want to acknowledge that this can lead to like some sort of crazy religious zealotism when you're this convicted, like convinced of something. Like that's the other side of the coin. That like if you absolutely stick to your guts, you in a way have to become disconnected from the group mentality, and that can absolutely become unhinged. Like that's a dangerous side that has to be acknowledged, I think.
Okay, that's fair enough. But I guess I'm wondering more so if somebody, let's say somebody drinks Coke every day and they had this idea that Coke is really healthy for them. And they notice that the more they drink Coke, the better their life gets. Does this mean that Coke is necessarily healthy for them?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I would like to. You're probably familiar with the idea that we can only perceive so far. That if you do actually take the highest degree of skepticism, that it's very difficult to imagine the object in of itself.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. And then, so if someone makes a claim like such as Coke is good, the best method we have to apply to that's a statement that's applied to sense truth. So sense truth equal Coke is good. And when you have a sense truth, you want to apply methodologies that tear apart and reconstruct it, tear apart and reconstruct it. And you have to hold both those things in the space at the same time.
Sure.
Which is kind of a contradictory stance to hold. But you have to have a sense truth and you have to apply methods that deconstruct the sense truth and put it together at both times. And it's very hard to hold both those things in the position.
Okay.
You should.
Understood. Do you feel like you've done that with this topic in your belief here, or that you are doing that?
Truth be told, I feel like I fluctuate between like crazy and like really, really bored because, I could support the position of absurdism. Like, the world is an absurd place. If you try to make sense of the world, the fact that like, I think the religious stories do a better telling than like what the fuck the news is doing, like, it's kind of my position.
What was that second thing, that religious stories are doing better than what?
Then makes more sense to me than, let's say, the stories that are in the news.
Gotcha. Than in the news.
Like the Israel-Palestine war, the endless wars that are always going on. You always hear of wars that, why kill, but like we do that.
Gotcha.
And, as you dive into details, I really do find that things appear senseless, unfortunately. And that's kind of my defense of absurdism philosophy.
Gotcha, neurotic. Okay, just one more question from me, and then we'll see what the others have. Is there a second best explanation for why you've implemented these symbols and they've helped you out day to day? So let's assume that your original claim here, religious symbols are symbols of the unconscious that we should integrate into our lives. Let's imagine that's not true. What would be can you think of a second best explanation for why your life has gotten better, even though you've done this?
I'll answer something close to your question.
Okay.
So I used to be a very rational-minded person. I have a degree. I'm a bachelor of chemistry, so I have some idea of that world.
Okay.
And I understand scientific method. And so I can have a profound respect for rational discussion. But since I've adopted these quote-unquote symbols, I have you kind of start to see what someone's working towards in their intuition, and you can start to understand other people's, those feely people, because there's feely people and there's the rational critical mind people. And I start to understand the feely people better. And yeah, I think that's close to your question. I think, and you can ask again if you'd like.
Yeah, it is. Just, if your claim wasn't true, is there another explanation for why your life has gotten better as you've integrated these symbols into your life? Is there another explanation?
I mean, because I constantly keep trying to pick up burdens and make things better. It's the myth of Sisyphus. You just keep pushing the rock uphill, and if you just keep fighting uphill, eventually those around you just get better.
So the idea is, it's not because these symbols, and I understand your position, but the second idea here is, it's not these symbols might not be embedded into your subconscious, but you are just a persistent person, and that's what happens when you're a persistent person, is that your life gets better. Is that the idea?
And I think that your interpretation is a true interpretation.
Okay.
I think with it, I don't dispute it.
Gotcha. Okay, let's maybe talk to Pierce or Sushi. Do you have any questions here?
No, I don't have any questions. Pierce, do you have something?
Oh, you're muted. Yep. Uh-oh.
Can you hear me now? We good?
Yep. Awesome.
Oh, my bad. That was my bad. All right. Neurotic Shrimp, I'd like to run something by you here. So I'd like to introduce you to Alan, the alien. He has landed his spaceship right in your backyard. He's a nice guy. Don't worry. He's not going to hurt you. He has never been to Earth. He doesn't know anything about humans. He doesn't know. He's very new to Earth. So he comes in and he hears you talking about your claim, and he wants to know if your claim is true or not. How would he go about making that determination?
So, yeah, I suppose I'm doing this underhanded thing of saying it is subjective, and that kind of gives me way too much rope. Way too much rope. So ultimately, what the alien would have to do is just take a leap of faith and perhaps run the experiment for themselves. But why would you convince the alien? How would you convince the alien? It's you wouldn't be able to convince it in any scientific manner, I don't think.
Okay.
Maybe you could by getting them to act out the myth of Sisyphus,
Okay.
but it has to be experienced, I suppose.
What I'm hearing here is that there wouldn't be like a scientific way to test to see if this claim is true. He would kind of have to like take someone's word for it. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Yes. Now, if I could deconstruct this idea a little bit. So the scientific method is designed to falsify. So I want to point out that it's a great method and has given us fantastic technologies, but it's giving you the inverse of the truth. So it's not the structure of truth, but it's hacking away until you're only left with the truth. So what that means is if you have a claim that can't be tested, it's not in the realm of science. It won't appear there. And so it's not constructing the truth in of itself. It's making it's a negative imprint of it being cut away. It's kind of molding it like that. It's kind of the best rational defense I could make. I think what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, are you saying that the claim you're making is unfalsifiable? Yes. So scientifically speaking, that's the big problem. Should we hold beliefs that are unfalsifiable? And this is where I kind of plead absurdism. Like, should we hold beliefs that are unfalsifiable? So the dangers exist of holding these beliefs. Like religious zealots exist. The dangers exist. Okay. I think we should, because I think that people should fully express, and I think that people tend to repress. But that's pretty much my stance. Okay. I think I don't really have much else to ask on top of that.
I have just one more question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So we've talked so far about like this idea that we can have an example like somebody who thinks Coke is good for them because they drink it all the time and their life improves, right? We've talked about how this is subjective and that kind of gives you a lot of rope, and you are sort of a dedicated, persistent person, and this can also be a reason for life improvement that doesn't necessarily include your claim, and that the claim is unfalsifiable. Originally, I asked you if you could bet all of your possessions, right, and either double it if you're correct or lose it all if you didn't, and you said that you would bet all of them. Would you still bet all of them?
Yeah, I think that's the concept of being all in is a frame of mind that not a lot of people have access to.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then with the Coke's claim, I'm going to strongly assert that water is good, but like, is that an absolute truth? You can die from water poisoning. Is Coke good for you? Sugar, you should probably cut in half. But like, are you currently suffering a diabetic attack? Coke might be good for you, and so like you still have to, the devil's in the details. But I'm going to strongly assert that water is good for you. Like, I'm absolutely positive that water is good for you guys. All right, like you should drink water.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, thank you, Neurotic Shrimp.
Yeah, cheers.
Appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate I love being critiqued.
Awesome. Hope to talk to you in the future.
Likewise.
Delight. And joining in. I'm looking forward to coming back next week and doing this again. It was certainly fun. Any thoughts, Quayd?
Just be sure to look for the Street Epistemology Discord server We'll be in there many times. I'll be in the politics Discord server too. I'm always open to have these conversations. If you didn't get to talk about your claim tonight, I'd love doing SE on any and all claims. Check out the navigatingbeliefs.com website where you can learn this method yourself if you found it particularly interesting. And you can go to the streetepistemology.com website and find lots of other interesting things. Again, we're on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, Honest Abe 42. Sushi. Is it Sushi Thinks? Is that it?
Sushi Thinks. You got it. Sushi Thinks. Because
and then
I'm
Pierce
Pierce that thinks.
Yeah. And then Pierce, Pierce, is it just, what is your name? Pierce Watkins SE on YouTube. And then, of course, the Street Epistemology YouTube. And we're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Please check those out. Subscribe if you like what you saw and all that other stuff that they tell you to do and whatnot. Okay. Anything else?
No, that was it. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Have a good one.